Hi folks, today we're going to talk about the SRED program, Scientific Research and Experimental Development. Roughly 2% of the claims put in for this program in Canada are from scientific research, while 98% are on the experimental development. Applied research, basic research, or other topics covered under scientific research. And what we want to cover today is primarily the experimental development side. However, there could be questions on scientific research that can be covered in a future time. First off, though, we want to introduce who we are. SRED Automation, we are made up of 11 engineers that have varying disciplines, varying levels of experience. As a company, we also have 2 accounting people that look after the claims in terms of filing the claims and handling the costing side and the tax side associated with the filing of claims with the CRA. We've been in business for over 18 years, and we have assisted over, actually that number is roughly 225 companies in all sorts of industries right across Canada. Now the process for putting together a claim, first off we like to introduce the program on day one, identify all the potential projects that would qualify, gather as much information as we can, and once we leave that first meeting, we will then prepare and finalize technical reports for the identified projects. Costing of qualified expenditures will occur between the necessary technical leads and the financial people that need to be involved. And then after that, we'll submit all this information to the external accountant, and then working with the CRA on behalf of your company, we will get all this information appropriately submitted through the annual tax filing with your T2, or an amended version of the T2 after the annual filing has been already completed. Now timelines, typically these timelines are something that are set within the meeting, the kickoff time, what projects need to be identified, the technical descriptions, again completing the costing, all of the things that we've just discussed, we need to establish some timelines on that. And the most important part of this process is to know what your requirements and what your expectations are of our people. And the most important thing to note though is that from the end of a year end, you have 18 months to file a claim, or else you will lose that year end. So for instance, if you have a December year end, let's call it December 09, you have until June of 2011 to file your 2009 claim, or else that entire year of activity will be lost and you can no longer claim it. It's a hard, fast rule that the CRA has on this program. So now what is SRED? The Government of Canada established the SRED program in 1985 to encourage Canadian businesses of all sizes to conduct research and development. And at that time the program was essentially designed as an incentive program to reach out into industry and to try and drive those dollars back into the hands of the people who are basically attempting to advance technology. It's written into the Canadian Tax Act and is administered by the CRA. Now, more specifically, what is SRED? It is defined as a systematic investigation or research in a field of science or technology by means of experiment or analysis for the attempt to achieve a technological advancement, or if it's on the basic research side, advancing scientific knowledge. Now, that basic description can occur within the development of new products, the enhancements to existing products, the development of new processes, or the enhancement to existing processes. Now, you may also want to substitute the word method under processes, but essentially either products or processes, those are the typical areas in which we find that there are SRED activities that would qualify for a rebate on the program. Now, one thing to note, field of science or technology, and we're going to cover what areas don't qualify, by means of experiment or analysis. Now, the field version of that is often termed trial and error. Now, trial and error in the eyes of the CRA is not an acceptable method. The reason being is that they consider it more of a shooting from the hip process versus an actual systematic method of identifying what the successes were and what the failures were. So essentially you're arriving with some data, you're analyzing that data, and you're coming up with, we'll call it a new hypothesis. And then there you're going about verifying that hypothesis. Now, we will discuss it a few different times throughout the presentation here, but essentially what we're looking at here is a grade 10 science project, and we'll describe that in more and better terms. Now, what is not SRED, market research, sales promotion, commercial production, style changes, routine data collection, routine testing, or quality assurance programs and their development. All of these things are tied to existing technology, existing processes, and typically your standard commercial operation. Now, every time you identify something within a company that is attempting to advance your understanding, your knowledge base, or in other words, your technology, we define it as a project. And that is described as a set of interrelated activities that collectively are necessary for the attempt to achieve a technological advancement, pursued through a systematic investigation or search by means of experimentation or analysis, and performed by qualified individuals. So lots to think about here, but one of the key words here is attempt. So the word attempt essentially says this. The CRA says that this is one thing only. It is a technology-based program. They do not care if you have enormous commercial success. All that they care about is that you tried to advance your technology from something that existed before. And one really key point here, and I'll mention this more than once, is that that technology is for your organization. It is not for the entire industry for which you are a part of. Okay? Now, in the pursuit of that technological advancement, the systematic portion, and we just discussed this, you're investigating the reasons why that the pursuit of this advancement is not easy, is not simple, and is not routine. So you're investigating, and you end up having to experiment and analyze various variables, various conditions to arrive at a solution, something that you think may solve or satisfy your objective as a commercial industry. Now, the other part of this is that ultimately you're trying to prove out your hypothesis, whether it be correct or not. And maybe you get part way, maybe you get all the way, maybe you have to modify your hypothesis and continue on and to iterate until you come upon a solution. Now, we often like to suggest that it does involve more than just one individual within a company. We look at people right across the board, from CEO to shop floor. There is activities that qualify within each of these individuals over the full spectrum of people that are employed by an organization, big or small. Now, the most important thing to know today is these three criteria: technological advancement, technological obstacles, uncertainties, or unknowns, and then the scientific experimentation, the systematic investigation that goes along with the attempt to remove those obstacles to achieve the advancement being sought. Now, just to dive into each of those, we're going to do that now. But what I do want to mention is that those first two statements are simply that, they're statements. They're the things that are clear and obvious to you on a project that qualifies. Whereas the third item, which is the experimentation and investigation, this is really where all the work is done. Now, the advancement statement. A project should advance the company's technological knowledge beyond what is readily available in a particular field. In other words, it's your baseline. What knowledge did you gain developing that new capability, regardless of the success or failure of the project? So the advancement statement. Essentially, the project advancing the company's knowledge beyond what is readily available in the field. And essentially, what this means is that they expect you to research the public domain to identify if there's any solutions out there that essentially handle what you're trying to do, or if a vendor could provide you with a solution, or if you've got the knowledge within your company from prior years' experience. So the technological advancements sought as an example here in a minor rotor bit and related rotor that will mine at a rate of 15% faster than currently possible with the following other requirements. So some of the requirements might be the same or less horsepower, minimizing the dust creation for both enhanced material recovery and occupational health and safety reasons. A third reason might be the service life that must be maintained at 1,000 working hours minimum. So what we've established here are some direct parameters that identify the clear-cut advancement from the baseline technology. Now, the second aspect is the technological obstacles. These are the shortcomings and or the limitations of the current state of technology, the technological problems or the unknown elements that had to be removed to achieve the advancement. And again, these problems that could not be removed through the application of existing knowledge and or technology. So these must be definite obstacles that require ultimately the third criteria. Now, an example of the obstacles. The current mining bits require a large amount of force to properly cut through rock formation and generate an excessive amount of dust in the process. The obstacles in this project include: how does the geometry of the bit affect the speed of cutting and the power requirements? It is unknown if geometry changes will affect the creation of dust. How will the cutting speed be affected by various rock formations? How will the new bit design affect the rotor in terms of forces and stresses? So these are some obstacles, technologically speaking, that are directly related to the advancement that's being sought. Now, the third element, this being the one that actually accumulates the hours and the time and really the dollars that are being claimed in this program. This is the experimentation, the investigation that is systematic. The SRED must incorporate a systematic investigation going from hypothesis through testing by experiment or analysis to a statement of logical conclusions. So again, we mentioned earlier, your grade 10 science project. This is it in a nutshell in the real world. Following is a planned methodology, documenting objectives, project steps, and the technical results along the way is a requirement. However, don't be alarmed at that initially if you do not have perfect records. The program does allow for a little forgiveness going back in time, but moving forward in time, they expect that now that you're aware of the program and the requirements, that you will start to document information as required. Now, the content, as an example, January to April 2009, research was done into existing bit designs, and consultations took place with mining operators as to the limitations of commercially available bits. Research and limitation here are key words. There needs to be, or could be very well, some limitations on the existing technology that are driving the advancement that is necessary. So from this, we theorized that reducing the back rake angle of the bit would reduce the forces required to engage the bit to the ore body. Design of the new rotor bit started, and computational analysis was performed to determine reaction forces on the rotor. 10 different back rake angles were simulated and analyzed, with a 5-degree angle deemed to have the lowest reaction forces. We were uncertain as to the actual mining forces as compared to our simulation, so we decided to build prototype bits with 3 back rake angles for testing, 4, 5, and 6 degrees. Design of the new rotor was initiated. The prototype was built in the time period May to August 08. Fabrication of the rotor was constructed, and problems with the bit to rotor interface were discovered, and the rotor was redesigned and modified. The university was contacted to run side-by-side pull tests in their soil bin to determine reaction forces on the different bits. Finally, in September to December 08, based on university tests, the rotor and 5-degree bits were installed on a mining machine at a local mine for field testing. The 5-degree rake angle did result in less dust at 15-degree higher mining speeds, but power had increased by 4%, not decreased as we had predicted. This resulted in a rotor failure. After failure analysis, the rotor was redesigned and will be tested with 6-degree bits in the new year. Now, the amount of work that was just discussed here is very specific to this example, and your situation may not be.